It is, or it was, a chicken heart.
Chicken heart? Are you crazy, man?
Chicken heart! Yes, chicken heart, I tell you. Chicken heart! Listen to me, you fools! Listen!
Welcome back to Chicken Heart Productions presentation of a podcast in black and white, www.chickenheartproductions.com. I am John Grisolano.
Joe Mo.
Mary Grismo.
Tony Grisolano.
Jenny Grisolano.
Father Grizz.
We are back to talk about another classic old movie, preferably black and white, from the Hollywood system of the past. This week we're going to be talking about I Wake Up Screaming. Before we do that, let's give the spoiler alert.
Go get him, Chicken Heart. Go get him.
We are talking about a movie that's over 70 years old, so if you don't want to know what's going to happen, stop listening now. Otherwise, stay tuned in while we talk about what happened in this movie. And since I chose I Wake Up Screaming, I'll tell you why I picked it and start to talk a little bit about the movie. I think I mentioned before at the end of The Uninvited, I had the idea of sort of a theme. And the reason I chose this movie is because, like Laura, it's a proto-noir. In other words, we're not totally in film noir territory, but we're getting there. So there's a lot of film noir elements to this movie that I've always liked. It's visually very interesting. I think this is the most visually impressive movie we've seen so far. It has some fantastic shots that I like a lot. It also has the characterization of the character played by Laird Cregar is this sort of obsessed policeman. I thought there was some sort of tie there to Laura, and that again you have a man obsessed over a female, a policeman, and also the fact that Cregar was considered for the role of Waldo Lydecker. Figured none of you had seen this movie, so I wanted you to at least see a Cregar picture, because I like him a lot. He didn't make a lot of movies. He died young, and I think...
Is he the guy that was the detective, the main one?
Yeah, he's Inspector Ed Cornell. Yeah,
He was
the
a
big
creeper.
guy.
Oh, he was definitely a creeper.
Yeah, in
So-
real life, he for a role was coming up and he needed to lose weight for. He did a crash diet where he lost 100 pounds very, very fast, and he did it a lot by taking amphetamines, speed, and it messed up his lining of the stomach. It messed up his stomach, and he had to have surgery for it, and he died soon after that. He was 31. So, if you want to lose weight, apparently amphetamines, and I can't say it even right. Apparently, that's not the way to do it.
No. And it's unfortunate because he made some, a handful of really good movies.
Remarkably good.
He looks like a young fat man from the Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sidney Greenstreet,
Yeah.
which is interesting because Sidney Greenstreet also made his film debut in this year as well, in 1941.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Was that guy a creeper in real life?
Well, they are actors.
Creeper? Like, did he have a shrine to some woman and he followed a guy around and stalked him and tried to have him framed for murder?
Is he creepy?
Oh, he's an actor. No,
In
He's
real
very
life?
nice.
They're just regular people.
He was losing weight to
They
play
pretend.
the romantic lead in a movie.
So he's an act, but because of his physically imposing presence, as well as the fact he plays a great mental case or weird guy, heavy. So let's get into the movie.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Why is it called I Wake Up Screaming?
I think it's because I thought it was because of the scene when Victor Mature woke up.
My mom said because it's based off of a book called I Wake Up
It is.
Screaming.
It's based off of a novel.
And that they might have cut out the part of why the novel was called I Wake Up Screaming, because I can't think, there's no part of the movie.
It is named after, adapted from a novel,
Yeah.
which is called I Wake Up Screaming. Yeah, I don't know who's supposed to be waking up screaming. First, I should mention there's a piece of music you hear. Very famous piece of Fox music. It's called Street Scene. It's used in I think 7 or 8 Fox movies from the 30s or the 50s. So if you watch enough films and you see a 20th Century Fox movie, eventually you're going to hear this piece of music multiple times. So it's a very famous piece of music. It's one of the themes of the movie. It's sort of the street theme. The other theme that's used throughout, and Mike mentioned this before, is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's basically Betty Grable's theme.
Yeah.
Which, this movie is older, I think, than
No, this is 41, and Wizard of Oz, I believe, is 38. Music is very important because even the Ed Cornell character, Larry Kragar, has also sort of a sinister kind of theme music. When he's on screen, he's got a piece of music they play, this sort of Frankenstein almost, like kind of, very dramatic music for him. But we start out in a police station. Under a police grilling is Victor Mature, whose character is Frankie Christopher. And he's getting grilled by the police. One of the wonderful shots, he's in this harsh light.
Yeah.
With shadow all around him, and he's arrayed with these fedora-wearing cops with cigarettes hanging out of their mouths. I love this sort of thing. It's fantastic. It's very stylized. Of course, it's nothing like real life, but it looks so cool. These guys,
And there's one detective in shadows that you can't see, which I also really love.
Yes, and you just hear a voice coming out of the darkness. He's talking to him, and they're all grilling him about killing a woman. They all say, "Why'd you do it?"
Tell us again where you were that night. Well, I could record it down for you guys.
And we play a record for you. Yeah.
The first thing that popped out to me in the opening scene was what I'd never seen Victor Mature in anything before, but seeing him was like, all I could think of was if this movie was made today, that guy would not be a romantic lead. That'd be the quirky sidekick. His look-wise, by today, he wouldn't be the romantic lead.
How old was he? He looks like 40.
I think he was fairly young in that, actually.
Yeah, he was pretty young in that.
For him, I mean, he was much older in those later, those epics that
He
he
looked
made.
terrible, though. Terrible for...
Well, I didn't think he's that bad. But,
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
He's bland. He's bland. He was fine. He didn't take away from
You mean as an actor or the way he looked?
Both?
Both, actually.
Really? Because I thought he was very interesting looking.
I think he's very interesting looking.
He always looked to me like a Greek god or something.
Yes.
I mean, like he looks very...
But he does, I think my
exotic, might even, for a man.
He looks like a more handsome Mr. Bean.
Oh, that's interesting, your take on his appearance.
He does. If you put them next to each other, they could be
But
brothers.
he's clearly
Just one is a
much
better
more
looking
put together.
He
He
has-
is considered a very
Yes, and also
macho
God.
man in that era. He was
He's
built.
a big, virile,
Yes.
masculine man.
My biggest thing with him in this film is that he does tend to have the same facial expressions.
Yes.
I've seen those facial expressions before in things like The Robe and Demetrius and the Gladiator, and so I think that was my biggest thing watching this movie, watching him specifically. I was going, oh yes, I know that performance.
Yeah.
He looks a bit
Somewhere.
like
He can't give expression.
Bob
Yes.
Saget.
Saget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
actually think Bob Saget's better looking.
Yeah, but they
Well-
look alike.
He's being... All right, nevertheless, back to... We move on from Victor Mature's looks. So we all agree, yes, he has some limitations as an actor. I don't think he ruins this movie, though.
No.
He's being questioned for the murder of Vicky Lynn. The first noirish element is, of course, the harsh lighting, the contrast of black and white. The second is, we get this right away, is also a flashback. This becomes a standard of film noir pictures as flashbacks. Now, I don't know how common they are in 1941.
Would you?
From all of them, I can't think of any movies older than this that I've seen use flashbacks so heavily. We're given flashbacks to how he knows Vicky Lynn and their relationship, and he's a promoter of some kind.
It just happens that I know the man that's with her.
Who is he?
Frankie Christopher, a sports promoter. Prize fights, hockey, ice carnivals, and girls. Mostly girls.
Mostly sports promo. You know, he's later on. You see him at at a boxing match, and he does that regularly. But he can pretty much promote anybody, it would seem, and he uses that influence to try and create an out of nowhere waitress who's an attractive blonde, and turn her into a somebody by Almost on a bet. It's something comparable to My Fair Lady, where
It is
Higgins
very
decides to
comparable to
take this flower girl and turn her into a lady. And so the first thing this Frankie does is, with his two sidekicks, a writer for a newspaper. I think?
Alan Joslin's the actor's name, and his character is, but he's a newspaper columnist.
Yeah. It's almost on a gentleman's bet. They don't seem to have anything really on the line. He just, to prove that he can do it, tries to persuade.
And they got an actor too. Is his name like Robin or something like that? Alan Mowbray is the actor, who his character is an actor.
Robin Ray.
Robin Ray, and he's supposed to be like this broken down English actor.
Yeah, has been.
These are like his buddies.
Yes.
She's just a waitress,
Right.
which is Carol. Is it Carol Landis?
But the first scene with her is that they take her to some
Vicky
snazzy
Landis.
club where, even some dignitaries from the world are there, and they basically, right? There's
It's all a setup.
There's
They
like,
act like she's somebody important, and sure enough, people
believe it.
take interest. Yeah, they believe it.
And it's one lady
it's-
who's like Madam Fancy Pants or whatever.
Yeah, Madam Fancy Pants was there. I remember.
Yeah.
I thought she was like a nobility from England.
The funny thing is that still happens till this very day. They just act as somebody's
Lady Fancy
important.
Pants.
And the columnist can, or the newspaper man can put her all over the newspaper,
Right.
and write as though she's somebody important,
Right.
and it works.
Yes, in the span of days, it seems that she's gone from being a nobody to a Paris Hilton kind of person, who except can now act and be wanted for modeling and all of these things. Maybe even.
Are you saying Paris Hilton can act?
I don't know if she's ever acted, has she?
Yes, yes.
But she has.
Well,
Okay.
In legitimate films?
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, she was. Horror movies like to use her to get killed. It's true.
Oh, well,
At least the
that's
one I saw.
That's a good purpose.
a worthy cause.
Yeah.
So he builds her up, and it works. And during the course of the narrative, you learn that she has a sister, who's actually more of a main character in this, which is Betty Grable, the sister.
She
Jill
was
Lynn.
probably
Jill.
the best actor in the movie.
You think Betty Grable's the best performance in the movie?
Yeah,
Well,
she was good because
we-
all the other performances were pretty mediocre.
This whole thing started me thinking I was wrong and Vicky was right. After all, she had ended up with a Hollywood contract, and I was still pounding a typewriter and breaking my fingernails.
we actually see Betty Grable's flashbacks as well, because in another room of the police station, she's getting grilled as well. She tells her story from her perspective in a flashback of how she met Frankie Christopher and how he was involved and how he's in a very bad spot because he's found over the body of Vicky Lynn. Vicky Lynn is Frankie Christopher finds her murdered. This young, aspiring, up and coming.
And it's Jill Lynn that finds the body.
Jill and the
Finds
sister
it, finds-
walks in and sees Frankie kneeling over the body of her sister.
She was hit in the back of the head. There was no
Later,
weapon.
you find out that he has a pair of brass knuckles, but
Yeah, brass
That's-
knuckles is what she was killed with.
Anyway.
He's been jilted. He makes her success. She meets somebody from Hollywood, does a screen test. He wants to fly her out to Hollywood, and she does all of this behind Frankie's back.
Well, I'm going away.
Away? Where?
I couldn't help it, really. I couldn't. I just happened to run into this man, and purely business, you understand.
Where are you going?
To Hollywood.
Hollywood?
So Frankie is furious, as are the actor and the newspaper man. They all feel like they made her, and now she's leaving them, and none of them got more than a handshake, a promise, and a key to her apartment. She gave everybody she knew a key to her apartment, which was pretty peculiar. So that's why Frankie is a prime suspect, because he had the motivation of feeling like a jilted wannabe lover, career maker, which is, I think, key, right, to this.
Yeah, she was a big prospect. I mean, he had created her into a prospect. She was a property,
right,
and she's gonna leave it.
right.
The key thing, Mike and I talked about this a little bit before. I think that they don't come right out and say it. It's strongly suggested that she uses the sister, Vicky, has used her sexuality to string these guys along.
But
that-
you get the sense she didn't do anything with any of them.
No, absolutely.
But
They
she
don't. You don't
promised-
get a sense of
used
it.
it.
But then
They
she
say so.
promises that,
Yes.
that
The
she
innuendo.
will.
The innuendo
I
is
mean,
there.
giving
Never
a room
does.
key has got to make each one of them think I'm now special.
Yes,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
uses. That's what I'm saying. Not that she has actually fulfilled
Right.
all of this, but she is stringing them along.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
With the idea to continue to get.
And later in the film, you get the sense that she did the same thing with the crazy sergeant.
That's left. Yes,
Quite
you can
possibly.
presume there's something of that. That charm where she's manipulating men. Doing her flashbacks and memories about, do you remember anything odd or strange?
Yes.
She
yes,
brings
did.
up seeing a strange, large man she was at the
Peering in the
restaurant
window?
waiting for her sister and watching this man follow and sort of stalk her, to use a modern term. And the sister, Vicky, who got killed, blows it off.
You seem to have an admirer. There was some guy looking through the window at you like the wolf looked at the three little pigs. I'm used to that. With that plate glass window, I've got about as much privacy as a lingerie mannequin. It doesn't mean a thing.
But she remembered this, and then a few seconds later, when she's finished with her flashbacks, a large detective is brought
Who
in.
was the detective in Shadows at the beginning of the movie?
Yes.
Yes,
the
who was
voice questioning.
The voice questioning Victor Mature, who actually gets into a bit of a tussle with him in that scene. And now he comes strolling in, and she has Betty Grable has a look of fear on her face because she says, "That's him. That's the man who was stalking my sister."
And there is no doubt of that. The movie doesn't do anything quirky about that. If you haven't seen it, it actually is
It's him. There's no-
Yes.
Yeah,
So
and-
you know, as the audience, it is definitely the same guy.
And this is when we're fully introduced to Inspector Ed Cornell. Because she says, I want to see them. Betty Grable, Jill says, I want to see the man in charge. And they said, okay, lady. And they bring him in, and yeah, that's when she's like, blah, 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 blah. Because the man in charge, yeah, exactly, is the guy she thought was a
scary man.
creep.
And she
Yeah.
asks him
I mean,
stuff
by the
like,
expression on his face when he's looking through the window, one of us gets the sense he was like a private investigator, like looking as he had a look on his face like he had found somebody he had been looking for, not that of a peeping Tom or a stalker.
Yeah, there wasn't a stalker look to it. There was more. Well, maybe a stalker look.
I
in
thought
that
it was
he's-
very ominous.
Yes, it was ominous, but it almost either like he was a hired killer
Yeah.
or he was some private eye who finally found some long lost, like he was hunting her down. You got the sense he was somebody, a man who found a woman, maybe not necessarily for the right reasons, that he was looking for, but not like, leering at her or anything. That wasn't the sense I got.
Here's the head man.
That's him. That's the man.
What's this? She's crazy. She said she saw a mysterious stranger peeking through the window of the joint where her sister worked. Now she says it's Ed. What about it, Ed? Do you peek through windows? Sure, when it happens to be my district.
Cornell has some of the best written dialogue in the film, or he just delivers it really well.
He does have
Because-
some great. There are some good lines in this, also similar
Yeah,
to
and-
noirish.
I was
Very
really-
hard-boiled stuff.
Yes, and I was really amused by the fact that she was saying, but I saw you, watch you, and he doesn't really deny, all right, fine, I'm a peeping Tom, what are you hiding? I mean, I don't know why I just enjoyed that so much, but it's a fantastic introduction to his character.
Yes.
The way he interacted with her.
Saw it through the window, so what?
Yeah, right, yeah. So, what are you hiding?
I have
And he
to
just kept
this exchange though is where they had one of the bits that it drives me crazy when they do this in movies, where when they're doing Betty Grable's flashbacks with her sister and they're in the car, and this is after Frankie has discovered that she's going to be moving to Hollywood, and the sister says that Betty Grable's been in love with him, and something's going to happen between those two once Betty Grable's gone.
And
won't
You
Frankie
mean
be
when
glad to
Vicky-
get rid of her?
when Vicky's gone.
Yeah. When Vicky's gone, won't Frankie be glad to be
get
rid of her?
me.
Or
We'll be sorry to see you go, Vicky.
No, you won't. You'll be glad.
What?
You'll be glad to get rid of me. Jill's in love with you, haven't you noticed? Vicky, don't be silly. I'm not silly. I've known it a long time. She's tried to cover it up, but I've known.
which then gets used the detective says, "Oh, is that really what he said? Is it this is somehow evidence that Frankie was gonna kill her?" But it kind of annoyed me because I went, "Well, yeah, he's gonna get rid of her. She's moving to Hollywood. We all know she's leaving."
But in this,
But I think in this
film,
is
it works because you come to realize that he is trying to pin the murder on Frankie.
Yeah.
And so he's gonna pull in
Cornelis.
Cornelis.
Yeah,
so
that's
he's
gonna be the twist.
So in this film, I agree. Usually I think that's weak, but in this film, I think it's actually pretty compelling because you realize he's gonna pull incriminating evidence out of context against him.
So they have to let Frankie go. They don't have enough to hold him at the time. We see a little more, and we learn a little bit more now about what he's up against, because Cornell basically tells him, "I'm going to get you." And they show this a couple of times, where people come up to him like reporters. It's always reporters who know something.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, Cornell is after you. He hasn't lost a case in 15 years." He's sort of one of these guys, like if he comes after you, he always gets his man. So they make a point of that, because they make it even more threatening. This guy says he's going to find something on you, and he's going to do it.
Right.
Being an old school tough guy, Mike and I had this talk. Maybe
we have to bring this point up at some point.
It's going to come up real soon when we have the weird scene. Hold on, Tony. He's an old school tough guy, so he has to act like it doesn't bother him.
Right.
You know, it doesn't bother him at all. What is it, Tony?
And then Cornell starts like following Frankie around everywhere.
One thing that struck me as odd, there were things about the movie that, and John and I discussed a little bit beforehand, but that as you're watching it, the first thought in your head is, this is strange, this would never happen today. And it was the element that this detective, what's his Cornell, will literally just go to a man he's just investigated and interrogated and be like, "Hey Frankie, give me a lift down to the butcher," or whatever, like I'm going to lunch or drive me to my house, or like he starts engaging in small talk and like, "Can you drop me off somewhere?" A man he's investigating.
Yeah, but they did that in those old movies all the time. I mean, even in Laura, for a second I thought by the end of that movie there'd be like 10 guys riding in a van, because everywhere they went they picked somebody else with them. It's an element that's in a lot of those old movies.
I'm not denying that, Joe. What I'm saying is that what's odd about that is that if you're watching, which we all do watch so many of those Law and Order type shows now, the law has certain parameters and boundaries that are taken very seriously now, where people's first thought wouldn't be like that the judge of a case, for example, would just be like, "Hey, how you doing? Let's go grab it. Hey, by the way, I'm going to find you guilty." Like to hear the detective not just threaten him privately, but then ask him for favors and just sort of, they do this weird...
But he wasn't doing that. I didn't get the impression he was doing that to sincerely ask for a favor. He was doing it to tie a noose and be threatening. And
But that such a reality
But
exists at all, and I'll get to this in the scene that just floored me,
Yeah.
where I could hardly enter into it, was the idea that he wakes up, Victor Mature's sleeping in the middle of the night, wakes up, and the detective is sitting in his room in his sitting chair, and his first response is to kind of be a little surprised, Victor Mature, and then to look at him and be like, "What are you doing here? You have a warrant?" He's like, "No, and he says his response, "I'm off the clock." And then Victor Mature just kind of rolls with it, where the first thought is to be like, "This is crazy, illegal, and weird. I'm calling the cops. What the heck are you doing here?"
What do you want? Someday you're going to talk in your sleep. When that day comes, I want to be around.
It's no use, Cornell. I'm not the type. Have you got a warrant?
No. This is strictly my own idea. I'm working on my own time.
Then get out of here. I don't like rats in my bedroom.
Now wait.
Now, John had some way of explaining this aspect of it.
But you see that in a lot of those old movies, this whole waking up and the cop is in your house, or waking up and the villain's in your house, and you just sort of have...
But I think it's hard, it's difficult, because in today's reality, if a cop was interacting with a suspect that way, that's a good way for a lawyer to get that case thrown out.
But I don't think you can look at these movies with today's reality, though.
not to also mention that something happens where Frankie says later on in the film, "You're psycho," and he does respond, "You're psycho, and this isn't right. You can't do this." And he said, "Go ahead, call the cops." And he's everybody's boss. I mean, I think there's a certain helplessness that Frankie's character has, because this is the
He's the
This
inspector.
is the inspector. This is everybody else reports to him. I mean, I get the.
And I have seen a cop in the bar before look at somebody and say, "Call the cops and see what happens."
I have.
So that-
I had a couple comments to Mike's criticism, and one was I just want to mention the noir element visually there in that scene. Wonderful is you get the neon lights.
Mhm.
Okay, that also becomes a trope. Now again, it exists in movies before that, but it becomes a trope in noir. You get the flashing neon light in the background. When he's sitting in the chair there.
Uh-huh.
It's a wonderful visual cue. Frankie's framed against the wall in his bed, very much like he's,
surprised.
pinned
He
against
clearly
the
is
wall.
out of
He's
sorts
surprised.
when he wakes
Well,
up.
my reaction to that was, yes, I agree with you. This is odd. One, of course, though, these are stylized. Like Laura, exactly.
Yeah.
These are stylized to engage characters and get characters to engage in dialogue with each other. So obviously, it's not entirely realistic. They're not talking through their lawyers, which would be boring. This way, we stick the characters together and let them interact. So yes, that's entirely fictional. To Mary's point, though, I agree. There's an element of intimidation here.
Mhm.
Cornell is not going by the book.
And he knows he's not.
He's doing it on purpose, and he makes a couple references throughout. Like, he knows he's stepping over the line here. This is indicative of the fact, at least in my mind, he is obsessed.
Right.
He is committing all kinds of egregious, out and out in some cases, like immoral, illegal acts on purpose to punish this guy. But I also brought up the element when Mike and I talked before. Frankie's reaction, I think, is, I call it old movie tough guy reaction.
This is a fascinating analysis. This helped me to make sense of aspects of this that otherwise were like they wrench you out of the willful suspense of disbelief, which is what I'm getting at about this, Joe. Not the idea that people did things different in the old days, but any modern person watching this is going to obviously be like, their sense of indignation against something illegal is so heightened that the idea is like, you can't do this to me, I'm calling you. Where in this, it's rolled over quickly, and John's going to explain why Vicky Mature seems to almost instantaneously move from a place that should be like this.
This is my interpretation.
Yeah, and I think it's
I've
a
seen
worthwhile
enough of these
one,
films. I mean, I think I've got a little more insight into the mental mindset of what's portrayed on the screen in these movies. Is in old movies, being a tough guy often meant, and in fact, I've heard this line in some movies. The one I can think of is Edward G. Robinson says this to the cop they work over in Key Largo. And he says, "Boy, I'll give it to you. You sure can't take it because Toots can dish it out," or something like that. The idea is you would take abuse. A modern action hero frequently dishes out abuse. Gets up, has giant biceps, and beats people to death with their fists or shoots them.
Right.
In old movies, you would take that. If you could take that, you were tough. If you could take the physical, the mental abuse, like look in the police grilling, Frankie doesn't break. He stays calm. He dishes out wisecracks, right back at him. He doesn't lose his cool. As opposed to the actor, when they bring the actor in for question, remember, he breaks down crying and sobbing. That shows you're weak. You're weak. It has nothing to do with your physical prowess or, look at, my biceps. It was, can you take this? Can you be cool? So Frankie, as a tough guy, is not going to show Cornell he's bothered by this.
Right.
Even though he probably, maybe he's soiled his bed, but he's not going to let him know about it. He's going to act like, I'm cool, okay? You see that a ton in these old movies.
Yeah.
That, the physical violence might be a punch, but the rest of it is you can say what you like to me, you can threaten me, you can do all kinds of things to me, but I'm not going to let you see that you've scared me. So that's my interpretation of a lot of Frankie's reaction to a lot of this stuff, which a normal person would break. Like the actor, like Robin Ray. We would be blubbing, going, "Please don't! I didn't do it! I swear to God!"
That's
no,
another
no.
psycho scene. I mean, that's nuts that they bring them in for questioning and just show a video of the dead woman. I mean, if you think that's also not.
Yeah, I don't know how to. I thought that was clearly odd, and as you can tell, they're all sort of watching them, and you don't know what they're trying to do.
See, I think it's done exactly for that reason.
Yeah.
They want to see what their reactions are. Again, would that have really happened, or is that technique really used? I have no clue. But I think for a movie purposes, in this
those kind of
stylized
things
world,
are,
to show the way the characters react, they're showing you Robin Ray is weak.
And and that there's a power struggle between.
Well, they already
Cornell.
knew. They already knew he was innocent. He already knew that. They already
And
knew
Cornell
his
has said
alibi. They
that.
already
Yeah,
knew
Cornell
his
knows
alibi.
he's not. He says to the DA, he couldn't kill a fly. The DA barks at him, which is another point. Several times throughout the picture, this I agree with Mike, because I never understood why. The DA has a very abrasive or hostile relationship with Cornell.
Just Cornell, yeah.
When you consider he's supposed to be this successful detective, he solved every case he's ever worked on.
Yeah,
but the DA is very short with him.
Well, he may have solved every case, but how many cases got thrown out because of broken parameters?
I did wonder that. I also wondered at the end of the movie when he says, "You better be right about this, or it's going to be your career."
Exactly. We're
I
like,
thought, after
what?
Years of a successful career.
What has he done to give you that right?
That's what I said. I never understood
don't
that. They don't
understand
really
either. That
explain
might be
why the
something
DA
that's
is so
clear in the
short
book
with him.
and not clear in the film.
Because several times he has no patience for him at all. And I was like, if this guy's your crack detective, why are you barking at him like you're a football coach with a high schooler or something?
Right.
Which is what it reminded me of. You know.
Throughout, I was impressed that throughout the movie they do try to make it pretty clear that a number of different people could be the killers. There's always some weaknesses, like in this scene it's Frankie's cigarettes, and they make him specifically eyeball one of his cigarettes.
I guess the killer off the bat.
Me too, because of the actor.
Yeah, I guess off the bat because of the actor.
We do meet after Vicky is killed.
We
met Jill. The apartment's going to get cleaned out because Jill's not going to stay there anymore.
We meet him
Freddie
once
Grable.
before.
We made him.
Well,
we
we're
meet
right. We met
Elijah
him
Cook.
once before. When he's the desk clerk, and it's
Elijah
Elisha
Cook
Cook
was
Jr.
Whole for
And
me.
I saw House on Haunted Hill, and he's a really good.
He is Elisha Cook
He's
Jr.
like a mental
Wonderful
patient.
character actor. He frequently plays these sort of mentally deranged individuals, which is probably why Mary and
As soon
Joe
as I
picked
saw
him
him,
right
he's
away.
the killer.
He could do the crazy eyes really well. He sort of has this meek.
And he's got an innocent nuts to him, so you feel bad
Yes,
for
you
him.
feel bad for him.
You know
That's, I
he's
think,
a
exactly
killer.
sort of the way Betty
Yes.
Grable feels.
Yeah.
It's kind of like casting can do that too. Like there's been like even a show Twin Peaks, which I've never actually watched the whole thing, but I watched in the first 5 minutes of the very first episode. I knew who the killer was
Because of who
the actor was.
Yeah.
And then later I looked into it. And yes, like way many episodes later, that's the killer.
A hole for me, the first time you see the bellhop, so he's the bellhop, is he's got his
Yeah,
feet
his name
on
is
the desk.
Harry Williams.
Harry Williams. He's got his feet on the desk, and the three musketeers who like Vicky,
The columnist, the
have-
actor, and Frankie
have
yeah.
brought her home, and she says, "Hi, Harry, I want my key," and he looks up and ignores her, and then Frankie knocks his feet off the desk and said, "You pick that key up and get it fast for her." And then she goes upstairs, and as he's walking out, Harry says, "Hey, why did you care so much? She's a nobody." And Frankie says, "But she will be a somebody someday, and you'll be lucky if you even get whatever to sit in a room with her. I don't remember. You'll be lucky if she talks to you after that." The reason why that's a hole for me is because he does end up being the killer because he loves her so much, and the fact that I don't know, he's very dismissive and
He's playing it cool.
Oh, he's playing it cool.
Playing
I
it
see.
cool.
He's playing it cool.
He can take it.
Well, what was funnier to me about it is that these two girls who are supposedly just scraping by are living in a swanky apartment with a bellhop out front.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a really nice apartment. This is not like two working girls' apartments. This is like a really nice apartment in a nice building.
We meet him the second time when he clears out the apartment for her.
I would have done it for free. He's
And
got
that's
that.
when you get the little insight in terms of there's something wrong with this guy. Yeah, he's a little too.
Is that the second or third? Because is that also the same scene where he's been released?
It is.
Betty Grable scene.
It is the same
It is the
scene
same
with the
scene.
release.
He was a prime suspect because he ditched town right after the murder, same timing, and they brought him in, and then he gets released.
No, I think we know the identity of the killer. Who is it? A boy by the name of Harry Williams, switchboard operator at the apartment house.
And that's why Frankie gets let go, is because they said, "We thought it was you, but then we found this Harry guy, and turns out he's our guy."
And then they go back to Frankie after, they find the brass knuckles in his apartment.
Right. Well, they go back to Frankie a lot.
Which
Yeah,
is
he
why,
asked him for a ride, he asked
which is why he didn't have a weapon at the first scene, because the brass knuckles were planted in his apartment later.
Yeah, you don't see that, but he says it. Yeah, Cornell plants him there. So the next scene I'm thinking of, if I miss something, you can say something, but is we see Betty Grable alone in her apartment. Cornell comes, and he's going to break in, but then he sees she's there, and he goes back out again and rings the bell, because you said something about
Well, that wasn't apparent that he was going to... It's sort of an odd scene.
because he picks the lock, or
He
whatever.
picks the
or
lock,
uses a
walks
skeleton
in,
key.
and then you see him...
pick a lock because he's got a key.
Or uses a skeleton key, or whatever.
Well, the strange thing is that maybe it's just unnecessary. You don't quite understand what he's doing. You understand he starts to go into her apartment while she's in it, and then John's analysis is that he realizes she's there and then leaves and then knocks. That could have been communicated maybe better, because I thought is this a weird power trip? He's just proving to himself. I thought maybe this guy's going kind of loopy or something, where he can, like when he shows up in Victor Mature's room while he's sleeping in it and just decides, like, I can do whatever I feel like.
Well, maybe that is part of it. I thought it was just he was going to break in and search her place, but then he saw she was there, so he...
Yeah,
That's what I thought, because he does come in there and he questions her again. I mentioned this scene because there was a bit I liked here, a line he gives, again indicating something's up with him. He's looking at the picture on her wall, and he says, "Oh, the garden," or he
Garden
says,
of Hope?
"Yeah, the Garden of Hope." And I forget what he says to her.
He says, "Do you still have?
Do you still
live with
okay?"
hope?"
And she says, "What's the point of living without hope?" And he says, "It can be done."
Yeah.
And I thought, even if you've never seen this, cumulatively, there's enough now about this guy where, okay, there's something...
He's a nutcase?
No, but he's clearly... he's living with despair of some kind.
Yeah.
The picture's important because she
hid a letter behind it.
the letter where Frankie, for some inexplicable reason, typical murder mystery thing, he had written down the incriminating
She'll be
words.
out of our way.
Yeah, the incriminating words that he said to Vicky before she was murdered, like, "Yeah, I'm glad you'll be out of the way," or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So, because he wrote it in a note, and Jill, the sister, really does love Frankie.
Right.
She's in love with him, so she took the note and hid it in the picture.
He calls Frankie
To
give him the letter, but first they have a date.
Is this when they go to the swimming pool?
This is where it jumps the shark for me.
Yep.
Right about here.
Yes.
So let me get this straight. The guy who you found hovering over your sister's dead body not a week ago, the number one suspect, you're going to hide this letter that incriminates him, and then you're going to go on a date with him?
Jill, you don't think I did it, do you? You don't, do you?
To the same places he used to take
Your
her.
sister, yeah.
The
Yes.
big nightclub. It's creepy
And
stuff.
not just a date, but I'm falling even more in love with you date.
A date in which they go to these places and then go to the all-night swim club?
I'm not gonna lie. When I read reviews about this movie, that seemed to be the one complaint people had: is what was the point of that?
Well,
pool?
that's
To
where
get
this
Betty
movie...
Grable in a bathing suit.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where this movie is. That's why this is only a proto-noir. This is very much 30s melodrama. You get combinations of... The whole Betty Grable storyline is very reminiscent of 30s melodrama type stories. The whole Victor Mature crime element, that is noirish. If you would cut that whole bit out with the date and all that, then you pretty much have just a straight noir. But that and the ending, the very ending.
Yeah.
When he,
The kissy
Yeah, the
boo boo
dancing,
stuff, yeah.
yeah.
This is 1941. So you're getting a meld of some of this 30s melodrama stuff. Not that they didn't have some good crime movies as well, but you don't have full-blown noirish stuff like you get later. But yeah, that's where that comes from. That's why this film is sort of a tweener. And I agree with you, that's not my favorite part of the movie either.
I was laughing at scenes where like they're driving through cars with the roof off and everybody's wearing hats. And when she comes to see right after they left the swimming club, her hair is perfectly like it cracks me up. Like, I know that stuff, like, in old movies, you sort of just let it go,
because they're in a studio.
Yeah. Like,
they're sitting in a room like this, pretending to be in a car.
Right.
it's kind of like the scene in the 80s King Kong. Who is it? Is it Diane Lane who's in the 80s King Kong?
I've never seen
Where
it.
they find her on like a raft in the middle of the ocean that she's supposedly been there for 4 days alone on this raft, but she's wearing this beautiful white dress and her hair is immaculate and this like movie star makeup. Like that's all she's done for the last 3 days is get redoing her makeup
To be ready when they find you.
Yeah.
They might find me.
And then she'll go on a date with him right after she gets found. And down that island.
Now,
So the character motivation, it's similar to those scenes, like when somebody's in a moment of danger, and they're just found, or they just meet up, and they do like a hug and a kiss and a how are where the reality is you'd be doing the next thing you need to do to get safe. Well, in this, it's like he's still being hunted down, even if he's plays it cool with the detective when he sees him. He's got to be a little anxious and trying to. And she is, as Joe said, his sister's been killed and victim. It sure was there. He's not exactly, and he is shifty. I mean, she catches him lying all the time, lying about the girl even in the swimming pool. Have you ever taken another girl here? Oh no, never. And that girl swims by and says, "Hi, Frankie." And that was what I thought that scene was. I thought it was another way to just show Frankie not always being honest. That's all. It wasn't.
I didn't do it because it's just funny.
Right.
Well, yeah, I thought it was get Victor Mature with his shirt off and Betty Grable in a bathing suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But they have a date and fall in love.
they fall in love, and she brings him back to her place because she's going to give him the letter that
But Carnell
incriminates him.
shows up.
Well, she gives the whole spiel and reads the letter, and he says, Frankie says, "Did I really write that?" And Cornell has been hiding with another police.
That's right.
officer.
Okay, he's been hiding.
Hiding
Yeah,
to
he-
listen to the whole thing before he busts him.
Which is another weird, like you said,
they
they're
just happened to be there at that
He's
moment.
hiding.
Wait.
Yeah.
But because to advance the plot.
You skipped a scene.
Oh.
What did I
The
say?
movie theater.
Not yet. That's not yet.
No,
'cause
that's when they're on the run.
Cornell starts, I told you I was going to get you and you're going to hang and whatever. He continues to bully Frankie. And Betty Grable knocks him on the back of the head and knocks him out. She hits him on the back of the head and knocks him out.
And then they go to the movie theater.
Then they go to a pawn shop for the night, get the handcuffs off, and then they go to a movie theater and they're on.
Well, they're on the run now. They're on the run, literally, both of them.
Yeah.
And then at the
And
movie
hiding in the movie
Hiding
theater,
in
playing
some
adult
flames
movie
of
theater.
passion.
Yeah.
And then at the movie
Well, apparently
theater.
he's playing the same movie over and over
Yeah,
and over
for
all night
15
long, and they
hours,
just
yeah.
sat there watching it.
Yeah, I don't know if that was supposed to be like an adult movie theater or what.
It said adults only.
Yeah, okay. So
but
it was
I-
an adult.
yeah.
They're hiding out in an adult movie theater.
And then they.
And then let's remember
And
what is
then
their.
Cornell and the policeman came and.
Well, hold on. They have a plan? Frankie's going to do something, and he tells her to wait at
Frankie's
the
going to get
library.
his money at the safety deposit box in his old name, Botticelli.
Yeah, his name is Botticelli.
And
Which is another thing where I'm like, this guy could be a hitman. Like, there's nothing for you to think that this
And
guy's
she's excited
actually.
about being Mrs. Botticelli.
Yeah, but you're like, why
She's
is
in
none
love.
of this triggering her? Like, is this man really
well, she
some
does
strange?
say, when he says, "That's not my real name," she does say, "It's not your real name. Are you a criminal?" And he said, "No."
Oh. The detective's quirky, and everybody's kind of weird in this. Nobody acts exactly normal in this.
Right.
They're on the run. He's not, of course, himself, and he's
He's
got
going to go get money from the safety deposit box. She's staying
supposed
at
to
the
wait in
public
the
library. And
Somehow she gets found
She
there.
gets picked up. Well, the police must have been thinking the same thing they were, which was
What town are they in?
New York.
New York.
So she
They're
went
in
to
New
the
York.
one public library in New York and that they happened to be hanging out at?
It's a movie. Well, they weren't hanging out. They went.
Plot device, Joe.
He happens to be on the way to meet her, sees them going off with her. He now knows that she's been taken.
And he has a scene with Cornell. Is that scene?
Not yet, because he says.
creepy.
I think he says we got to let the bird go. This is
Not
where he
yet.
has that scene where his boss is just
This is
wailing
the final
on him.
scene where Cornell says, "Let's let her go, because she'll attract the male. The female attracts the male. He'll
No, I
come
think
for her."
they have the Tootsie Roll scene before that, because in that scene he gives his boss the Tootsie Roll.
That's true. So the Tootsie Roll scene is before that. We're just playing the Tootsie Roll scene is Frankie runs into Cornell on the street.
Right.
And threatens him with, of course, the finger in the pocket,
Right.
but it's not a finger, it's a Tootsie Roll. And so that's what we find. But they have an interesting little dialogue because there you learn a little bit more about Cornell. He talks about this, I don't carry a gun. He's smart. Cornell always uses, his whole methodology is about psychology and using his brain. He's not going to shoot you down or whatever.
He really comes across more, except in his own issues way, like that the cop, whoever, he's the one who's the very eccentric detective in one of these Law and Orders.
You know who he reminded
With
me
the
of?
gestures, not Private Pile.
Javert from Les Mis. This story had a bit of Javert. Yeah, because Javert and his obsessive tracking, like his whole life becomes about stalking Jean Valjean.
Yes.
And this had an element of that, of like this whole man has become warped. And then you realize there's another layer to it, but he's become warped in just tracking down and hunting this one man.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in that scene, there was something, because he was said, he has a great thing.
He's off time, yeah. It's
And
like
time means something to you, but time doesn't mean anything to
It
me.
might be, what is it, a month, a year,
Yeah.
10 years, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I'll get you eventually.
Yeah.
It's very threatening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the assistant DA, gives him the Tootsie Roll that he was just held up with, and says, does the analogy of the butterflies. They wanted to get the male butterfly. They let the female butterfly out. Within hours, you had both. So they let her out. And Betty Grable goes back to...
But it was just, that's where the DA at the last line about you'd better get this right or your career's finished.
And then
he says nobody knows that more than anybody. Yeah, exactly.
And that...
It just doesn't make any
which
sense.
really makes you realize...
Without the context, without knowing the ending, it doesn't make
It's
any
intriguing though, right? When you watch that, you think, oh, you know it the whole time. You know that there's something happening under the surface that you can't
Right.
put your finger on.
Yeah, if you haven't guessed, or if you don't know that Cornell's the villain, you're certainly suspecting something's not right with
You know
him,
he's villainous.
with all of these little
but you
clues.
also, like I also was
Little
pretty
clues,
confident that...
All right.
It was too obvious for him to actually be the killer.
Yeah.
Like, it was just too obvious.
Betty Grable goes back to her home and clears out her stuff.
And then she finds all the notes from the flowers.
Because I promised.
Because...
That's right.
Oh, that's a side little...
Well, we have to get rid of another suspect, which is the newspaper columnist. We mentioned that the actor couldn't be a suspect, both because he was in a clinic or whatever, right, for a breakdown, and we also saw that he's he doesn't have it in him to be a murderer anyway. But the columnist is still a suspect. Frankie and Jill investigate whoever's been sending these
Because I promised not.
flowers with a card, every card for day after day. Again, could be like it's a creepy thing, sending flowers to a grave every day with a note just saying, because I promised. So they investigate where did these come from. And it's coming from
The
the newspaper man.
Because he made a promise with, what's her name?
Vicky.
That he would send her flowers every day in Hollywood.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, and since she died, he's been doing it.
Yes, he has.
And the cops were actually leery of going after him. Because there's even the whole scene of like, we'll bring him in, like, better be sure. Because,
the newspaper man.
He'll skewer you in the paper if you're wrong.
So Frankie, of course,
he's
shows
eliminated.
up at the newspaper man's home and while he's sleeping.
Yeah, he breaks in on a man sleeping. But
and he says he can take it.
He's
He does take it.
he's eliminated as a suspect.
Yes.
To Frankie's satisfaction.
The newspaper man saw her was with her before she died, was the last person with her, other than the murderer. And he said, hey, was there anything weird about the apartment that you noticed? And he said, yeah, now that you mention it, it smelled like cigarette smoke. And somehow he realized from that it was the bellhop the whole time.
And then he...
But I don't know how. 'cause
Everybody in the movie smoked?
Right, everybody in the movie smoked.
Well, something about the door being locked. Like he had to climb down the fire escape to let her in. I don't know if that.
Oh, that's right, because the bellhop wasn't there. The bellhop wasn't at the front desk.
That's right.
The bellhop was actually already in the apartment.
That's right, yes.
And then he gets him to confess by...
They make a classic, or, old movie. What happens?
Then they call the guy, and Jill does the voice of Vicky and says, "Why did you do it? Oh, you killed me."
Well, she didn't
Yes,
do it.
why did you,
What?
Harry, don't you love me anymore?
Saying stuff
a
like
standard, if you watch old movies, or this having once been an old-time radio thing, if you listen to enough old-time radio shows, this must be a plot device used in 100 plays where
It worked for Scooby-Doo.
they have, the supposed dead person coming back and talking to the suspect, who will, of course, break down under the psychological strain of thinking they're being confronted by the person they killed, and then say, no, I don't.
It worked for Hamlet.
It works for Hamlet. So Jill calls up Harry, Elisha Cook Jr., and does the whole bit pretending she's Vicky, and he
cracks.
He cracks. This scene just before that also has another great, this is noir territory visual of Frankie on the stairway with in the shadows of the grill from the elevator or whatever it is there. You see him partly in shadow. Fantastic shot.
Well, this is also the scene where we find out that Ed has known for a while.
And we find out here that, they grab Harry Williams. The one cop who kind of seems to be buddies with Frankie came along with this, and they arrest him, and they find out exactly that Cornell had arrested him and knew
that he was the killer
and let him go. So Frankie, and now here I agree with you completely. Again, this is stylized movie thing. Would never happen. They let Frankie go. You let me have 5 minutes alone with him, kind of thing.
Yeah, you've at least deserved that.
Yeah, you deserve that or whatever. Okay, so they let him go into his place, Cornell's place,
And
which
he
is
has
a shrine.
Of
a very creepy shrine.
Now this is another reason I picked this movie, because I thought this is a modern element. This is the kind of thing you would see in a modern movie that I hope you guys didn't quite expect. Even if you expected Cornell was the killer, I hope you didn't expect to see the shrine.
No.
He has a shrine to Vicky.
That was creepy. It creeped me out.
Yes.
Which is supposed to, I guess.
And he has
I love people
photos
who
of
don't
her
have
all
friends.
over the walls. He is obsessed with Vicky, the dead woman. So he didn't kill her. Harry did, but he was obsessed with her.
Well, what I found the creepiest bit in this whole shrine is that we see him and he's putting new flowers in a vase.
Or the dead flowers, or there's already dead flowers there.
Yes, so that like he's there's an upkeep to this shrine, and I just I don't know what it was
It's
about
not
him
easy to keep a
putting in
shrine
new-
going. You got
Yeah.
to keep up on that.
It was just
He's been doing this for a
Yes.
while. Is what Frankie.
More than the 2 weeks. Like this has been.
Yeah.
For months, years.
And he gets to share his story, and this is hardest because it's the creepiest, but it's also the sort of most not just depressing, but also kind of pathetic about this guy. Is that you really not admire, but you think he's pretty clever and with it, and now he's telling these fumbling stories about how how did he come across Vicky the first time? He helped her out because
he'd seen her and he'd like kind of stalked her pretty much from afar, coming to the nerve to go talk to her. And then one day, 2 guys were messing with her, and he roughed them up and saved her pretty much. And ever since then, she's been very sweet to him.
apparently nice, but he seems to have made more of it because she.
Well, I think that's the thing is I think he thought it would one day lead to more. He knew it wasn't more then. It was this. One day, if I keep doing what I'm doing, she will love me, blah, blah, blah. And then you came along and you ruined it all. And now she's going to be too good for me and she'll never be with me and it's your fault. It was never going to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't, he hates Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to punish him, as he said, something like, you were a fish on a hook and I wanted to see you suffer.
Mm-hmm.
even though he knew, he said, "I'm not." He said something like, "He's like, I'm not stupid. I knew Harry Williams. I knew you weren't guilty." Like that. It's like that's beside the point. I wasn't doing it because you were guilty of that. You took her from me, is basically, and you gave her these ideas of being glamorous and something.
And that's actually,
so she'd always be too good. She'd never.
And
consider
that's a typical revenge story. A lot, like, and you see it in a lot of different movies.
Yeah, that's the big reveal. Is he was nuts about Vicky and obsessed with her, and has been tormenting Frankie basically as revenge, and he takes poison and kills himself.
Very coolly. It's at the beginning of the scene. He pours himself a drink.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the scene,
he's dead.
says
He's dead. He's
what he
dying.
drank was poison. Yeah.
He's dead.
And
He said
you're
it-
saying if it were a noir film, straight noir film, that would be where it ended.
Yes.
But there's one final moment where
We got a last scene, a reprise of sort of what Vicky went through, except Frankie and everybody follows through on what Frankie had said earlier to Jill about the way you would treat your wife. You would never expose her the way like he was doing
Put her on
with Vicky.
magazines.
You put her on. Yeah, because everybody starts asking who's the woman Frankie's with, and his buddies, the actor and the newspaper columnists, all say, "Oh, I don't know who that is. No idea." And the final little bit is they're dancing, and what does she say? Betty Grable says,
Something about
Mrs. Botticelli. This sort of breathy. She's heading off into domestic bliss with Frankie Christopher.
Frankie Botticelli.
Frankie Botticelli. And that's the end.
Yeah.
Now let's say how much we liked it.
No,
Dad,
on-
you go first.
On a couple side notes, we were talking earlier, the movie was not originally titled I Wake Up Screaming. It was originally titled Hotspot. And it was actually previewed for the press under the name Hotspot. I guess Hotspot was not working for them. So they switched it back to the title of the book, which is I Wake Up Screaming. Why specifically, I don't know. There was a remake made of this movie in 1953 that was called Vicky. So have you ever
With
seen
Jeannie Crane?
Mm-hmm.
I guess, yeah.
Should we watch it?
No.
And
somebody else's turn.
the two main scrolls we talked about earlier was Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and the other was the theme from a 1931 movie called Street Scene.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, I would give it maybe 2 stars.
2 out of 4, 2 out of 5.
2 out of 4.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't. I'm learning. I have to grow to, I think, appreciate some of the style and the acting, and because more often than not, I tend to find characters just not plausible. And where part of it is that this is where people like the tough guy. I mean, he can take it kind of mentality. That helps clarify a little bit stuff where it is hard to see through some of the female characters who are either wispy or the classic I'm gonna faint kind of thing. Where women now don't respond to anxiety that way. So when characters of previous eras do that, it can be hard to focus on the. And so in this movie, there was a little bit of that. Some of the things that, and I find I'm still learning how to get through that to enjoy whatever plot and story there is. So I mean, yeah, this movie was okay. I would not watch it again without the desire to do some sort of analysis. It's not something I would watch again.
Jenny.
I enjoyed watching it. I would say I would probably give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So.
Well, we're changing the system now.
Are we? Is it 4 or 5 stars?
4 is
Sorry.
the standard rating, I think.
You don't even have to give it a star.
I would say it's definitely worth a watch. As John pointed out, visually, there are some very interesting and cool shots that I enjoyed. And there's definitely some characters who were fun to watch, if not very realistic, but that's not always why you watch movies. So, but there are definitely some plot things that I had issues with. The swimming scene, and it's not perfect, but I think it's definitely worth a watch.
Tony.
I would give it 1.5 out of 4 stars because it was kind of a one-time watch movie. Because most of the murder movies are movies you can only watch once because it doesn't have the same effect if you watch it twice because you already know. Okay, yeah, I already know he killed him. So that's why.
Did people talk too fast in this one?
No. He talked perfectly fine.
Very.
Yeah, I'm not a harsh critic. I just enjoyed it. I thought it was
How many stars?
I don't know. I don't subscribe to a star system, Tony. I would give it a thumb up. I would say watch it. Maybe not if you know the ending. It's probably not as compelling, but there's some really clever dialogue. There's some interesting characters, some beautiful shots, and some great power struggle moments. And you know, there were several scenes where I thought it reminded me of Hitchcock. There were several sort of angles, and I thought it seemed to me sort of reminiscent of a time. It seemed to capture prototypes of a time very well, and I enjoyed it. Other than the swimming pool scene, I was along for the ride. I really did like it.
I thought it was okay. I'd give it 50 out of 100 stars. Yeah, break it down. I don't think I'd watch it again. I did think it was pretty to watch. I did enjoy a lot of the scenery, and I thought some of it was kind of cheesy. Actually, the character that I thought was the most realistic character is the one character we didn't talk about at all, and that's the guy who works at the graveyard. That one little scene,
right.
which was like the only guy where they come in, oh, come on in here, have coffee, it's okay, bye-bye. Like it was the only like normal human being in the movie was this one guy.
Yeah.
Like a 2-minute scene. The swimming pool scene. I was expecting more stuff to happen at the swimming pool because I really was confused about it at first, and I was like, oh, they just wanted a nighttime swimming pool scene. Victor Mature, I think he's a good actor. He bothered me in that I didn't really see him as a lead. Like, I just don't see that guy as a lead. I did like Ed's character a lot, and at the end, I felt it was very sad. Like, I wasn't really upset with him or angry with him. It was just sad.
I like it. I hate to do stars, but
out of 100.
Out of 100, for me, I give this about 75 out of 100.
Okay.
So that would be 3 out of 4 stars. But you know, I picked it for the visually interesting. So there's some wonderful light and shadow shots, which I like a lot. There's some great dialogue. There's some great hard-boiled dialogue there. I'm a big Laird Cregar fan, so I like his performances as a heavy. And as I said, it's a nice example of a proto film noir. So we're not in full-blown serious film noir yet. You know, we still get a happy ending where there's smiley, happy dance floor stuff.
God forbid! I hope we're not going down that road where all that's left is doom and gloom.
Well, with my movies, it will be all doom and gloom. That's why there's 5 or 6 of us picking movies.
This is only John's second movie. And
it's only building up to it.
Yeah, I haven't. You ain't seen nothing yet. So if you like film noir, you should see this. Joe gets to pick next.
Yes. I'm going to pick a movie from my childhood, which is Laurel and Hardy's Flying Deuces.
Flying Deuces. Do you know when that was made?
Oh, God.
Just curious.
I think sometimes late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, is it a talkie?
It's a talkie.
Okay.
All the Laurel and Hardys are talkies.
Okay, they are.
Uh-huh.
All right, well then, next time we'll do Flying Deuces. So join us next time for Chicken Heart Productions.
A podcast in black and white.
Woohoo!
Tried to warn them. But now it is too late. The heart is free.